We are live on Rumble. Good morning, Rumble. We are live on YouTube. Good morning, YouTube. Live on X. Good morning, X. Live on Facebook. Good morning. We are working. We are good on LinkedIn. Good morning. We are good on Instagram. Good morning, Instagram. We're good over on TikTok. Good morning, everybody checking in on TikTok. Tell me locations where y'all checking in from. We're going to get started in about 30 seconds. Tell me your location as you are checking in. We're going to get started in about 20 seconds. And the topic here today is misinformation. We got to be careful with misinformation, especially on TikTok. A lot of my suspenses have been allegedly, because of misinformation. But then my appeals have been won because it wasn't misinformation. So I don't know. That's what we're going to talk about here today. We're going to talk about misinformation and my assertion that there is no such animal as misinformation. Let me see what we got. We got Pennsylvania in the house. Shout out to Pennsylvania, my home state, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Good morning over there, Tuscaloosa. Shout out to the University of Alabama. Let's get into the topic here today, and I'll tell you why we're talking about this. And someone asked, O'Neill said, I commented yesterday if you thought about starting a podcast. O'Neill, I thought about starting a podcast about 10 years ago, and then I actually did it. And I still have it. It's called Work on Your Game. It has over 3,000 episodes. It comes out every single day. So, yes, I did think about starting a podcast. And then I thought about continuing my podcast, and now I continue to have one. So, yes, thank you for asking. You're about 10 years too late, but I'm glad you brought it up. North Carolina, shout out to North Carolina. I got a lot of friends in North Carolina. I've been there many times. Shout out to North Carolina. Traditional all D. Good morning. Courtney, good morning to you. All right, so the topic here today is misinformation. Is misinformation a real thing? My assertion is that it is not. Some of you may think that it is. James Collins, 956, good morning. Some of you may think misinformation is a real thing. Actually, I got to close this window. It is humid in South Florida. Let me close this window real quick, and then we'll get into this. All right, that's better. So I was just starting to record, and I'm like, why the hell is it so humid in here? Even though I'm in a suit, I have a fan that actually works pretty well. I got this fan off Amazon for like $50 like a month ago, and it actually works pretty well to keep me from overheating when I'm doing all this stuff. But I'm like, it still feels a little bit too humid in here. It's because the window is open. And those of you who live in South Florida, or any of you anywhere actually, when the humidity and the heat goes up, y'all understand it gets hot quick. But anyway, misinformation. This is something that came up a couple days ago when I was doing this stream, maybe about a week or so ago, when people were talking. I think it was last Friday. There was some conversation around misinformation. There was somebody who had a hard on in the comments about saying that something that I was saying was misinformation, or certain things can be misinformation. I've always been of the position, I've been talking about this for years, that either, I'll say it in two ways. One, there is no such thing as misinformation, air quotes misinformation. Yes, I know the word exists, and I know you can probably find it in the dictionary. That's not what I mean. What I mean is calling something misinformation is not a real thing, and that's the point that I'm going to beat up here today. The same way I don't think there's a such thing as transitioning your gender. I don't think you can go from being a boy to a girl, even though there are people who believe it, even though if you looked it up in the dictionary, there are explanations of what it actually is. What I'm asserting is that it's not a real thing, even though most people do believe that it's a real thing. So that's what I'm saying here. This is more of a perspective conversation. I'm not factually saying it's not such a thing because, of course, the word does exist in the dictionary. I'll give you a definition in a second. And I've also said that if you do consider something to be misinformation, that is not a reason to censor, block, or stop it from spreading. I believe that if you think something is misinformation, you should not try to block it and stop it. Or a person who is spreading misinformation, don't try to block or stop them. What you should do is let them talk as much as they want to as many people as they want and spread their message far and wide, because if it is actually not good or not useful or not credible, then it will expose itself rather than you trying to stifle it. And we all know that just human nature says that if you try to block people from hearing a certain message, then they're going to go looking for more of the message because they just want to find out why are you trying to block this message? Or what is it about this that you're trying to stop? What is it about this that you are so staunchly against that you're trying to stop me from seeing it? that's going to make me want to find out what it is simply because you're not letting me see it. If you just let me see it, I can see what it is and I can kind of decide for myself. But if you're trying to stop me from seeing it, then that's just going to make me more curious. So that's what I'm going to talk about here today, this whole concept. So let me define this word misinformation, then I'll introduce myself, then we'll get into our points. So misinformation, the definition of misinformation is false or inaccurate information that is spread regardless of intent to deceive. So false or inaccurate information that is spread regardless of intent to deceive. That's the dictionary definition of misinformation. This is a very tricky definition and it's a very slippery definition. This is the reason why I'm against the concept, because anybody could use this. And I'll get to that in a second. Let me introduce myself and tell you all the ground rules of what's going to happen here today. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm author of 41 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks, and I own this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. What we do here, because inevitably if somebody always asks, who are you? What do you do? I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on TikTok. And what we do here is we help professional service entrepreneurs systematize and scale their businesses from the 6 to the 7-figure level. You can learn more about that by going to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Our sponsored book today is one of my newest called The Sales Discipline System. This book is sponsoring this stream. You can get a free copy of this book by going to salesdisciplinebook.com. This book is all about using the top tools, the 8 top tools of the top salespeople. It does not matter what industry you're in, to say goodbye to up and down months and inconsistent outcomes. So any of you who's in sales, and by the way, all of you are in sales, especially if you run a business, Sales Discipline System. This is a great book for you and great book for your team. You can get this at salesdisciplinebook.com. I'll tell you more about that later. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to give you my material. I give myself a certain time limit to go through my material. I got about 52 minutes on the clock. I may take this much time. I may take less. After that, then we open the floor up for discussion. So if you have comments or questions or pushback or criticism, again, anything that I say at the top of the hour, then that's when we will get to that if I need to take that long. Sometimes I don't take that long. Sometimes I do. So also for you all to know, I'm streaming on multiple platforms right now. So I'm on Rumble, YouTube, X, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and TikTok on multiple screens, multiple cameras right now. So I am not looking at the comments while I'm talking. So if you want me to respond to your comment, wait till I open the floor up for the commentary, and that's when I will read and address people's comments. So now we got this definition of misinformation: false or inaccurate information that is spread regardless of intent to deceive, and it becomes disinformation when there's deliberate intent to mislead. All right, the reason why I don't like these is because people started using this term misinformation. I don't know how long this word's been around, but it became very popular around the time of the virus about 5 years ago. Around the time of maybe 6 years ago. It was late 2019. That's why it was called COVID-19. And then going into 2020, there's a lot of people throwing around this term misinformation and disinformation about that concept. And some of these platforms that I'm streaming on right now were actively engaged. Actually, all of them were actively engaged, except for Rumble. They were actively engaged in blocking and stifling any message that went against what the government was saying you're allowed to tell people and you're allowed to promote or not promote. Any questioning of it was labeled as misinformation, disinformation, and you couldn't even put the message out there. All of you remember that, unless you're less than 5 years of age. And the reason why I'm not a fan of misinformation is because if you call something false or inaccurate, first of all, there's no arbiter. That's the main reason why this concept doesn't make any sense. The only thing that we actually have are competing narratives. So I have my way of looking at things. You got your way of looking at things. And I say that your way is false and mine is right. And you say that my way is false and yours is right. My question is, who is the ultimate arbiter as to what is true and what's not true? Who's the ultimate judge that can say, okay, this is accurate information, this is inaccurate information? Who's the judge? I'm openly asking this question. Who is the judge? Is it the government? I don't think so. Is it quote unquote science? Not anymore. Is it, I don't know, some court? I don't think so. Is it the media? No. Is it some celebrity? Probably not. Is it a book? No, because not enough people read books. So who's the ultimate arbiter as to what information is accurate and what information is not accurate? And the answer is there is no answer to that question. So what really matters these days, and I've talked about this before, the thing that matters the most these days for all of you is not the quote unquote facts or even the truth. Even though I would love if facts and truth mattered the most these days, they don't matter the most these days. What matters the most these days is persuasion and being able to influence people. That's what matters. If you can persuade and influence people to think a certain way or see things a certain way, then you can get your point across. And if you cannot, you can have all the facts you want. You're not going to get anybody on your side. Facts alone are not going to convince people. You convince people by getting them to see things your way. You have to get good at persuasion. You got to get good at influence. That's what matters these days. And the way some people tend to influence is by doing what? Taking a point that they don't want to be heard and calling it misinformation so that you won't listen to it. That is a form of influence. Calling something misinformation is a form of influencing you and telling you don't listen to anything that comes from over there because they're putting out misinformation. The first person that did this really effectively on a wide scale, I would say over the last, just this century, was President Donald Trump. This was in 2016 when he was still running, and even after he won the first election, he started labeling the New York Times as fake news. New York Times and a whole bunch of left-leaning media outlets, he started calling them fake news. He wasn't using the term misinformation. He called them fake news. And when he did that, what did he do? Well, first of all, he got a whole bunch of people who already were in support of him and didn't like the negative news about him to have a label to put on anyone who was coming against him. And what all of you need to understand is that when it comes to influence and persuasion, putting a label on something is a very effective way of getting the masses to accept it. See, it's one thing if you just call something, if you can describe something that occurs, some phenomenon, but nobody can quite explain in a way that we all can get it. But when you put a label on it, now it becomes much easier to identify. So you had all these left-leaning media outlets. Listen to how I'm saying this. Left-leaning media outlets who were talking bad about Donald Trump. That's what they were. But when Donald Trump called them fake news, that it made it take off much faster. It was much easier to just blanket ignore all of them because you said, oh, they're all fake news. CNN, fake news. New York Times, fake news. MSNBC, fake news. He was able to call them all fake news in such a way that it hurt their credibility very strongly, not necessarily because of what they were doing, because they were already doing it. They were doing it before he called them fake news. What hurt their credibility was that now the average person could understand how to label them and that label stuck. To this day, all of you remember the whole fake news thing. People don't even use that term maybe as much these days as they used to. We've softened it to this misinformation thing. But Trump did this very effectively and hurt the credibility of those platforms. And the platforms, I think they made a mistake. They miscalculated. Instead of saying, how do we correct course here and actually report in a more balanced way? Because even though Trump said everything they said was unbalanced and unfair, I don't know if it was all unbalanced and unfair, but they were leaning very heavily against him. And all he did was point it out to where everybody could notice it. And it became obvious. Instead of them saying, hey, how about we course correct here and make sure that we are actually a little bit more balanced? They didn't do that. They tripled down on being negative about Donald Trump. And that hurt their credibility to the point that now when you hear of a platform such as CNN, New York Times, MSNBC talking, you already expect them to lean in one direction as opposed to leaning in another direction. They hurt their own credibility because of their reaction to the label. It's not the label itself. It's your reaction to the label that can hurt you. And that's what they did. So these days, all we have is competing narratives. The narrative is really what matters the most, because if you can get people to buy into a story, it doesn't matter if you present them any counter facts or counter truth or counter information. Once somebody buys a story, they're accepting the story. There's no facts you're going to give them that's going to change that mind. Next thing, this mindset, some people say, because I want to argue both sides of this conversation, this mindset can cause many people to be cynical and distrustful of everything. If someone was to believe what I said, that, hey, there's no such thing as misinformation, then you could say, well, maybe I shouldn't believe anything because there's no such thing as misinformation. So I don't know who's telling the truth. I don't know who's lying. Let me explain this to you all in a very simple way, something that may not be easy. It is this, that we used to have an institution of people whose very job was to find out what the truth was and report it to us. They were called journalists. They're no longer doing that job because nobody is willing to invest in journalism in terms of consuming it. Therefore, nobody's paying for it. So all people used to call journalists, now they've had to go do other things because it's the only way they can keep a job and make money. And since those people are no longer doing that job of journalism, each of you as a citizen, you are more responsible for getting to the truth of things than you've ever been before. And moving forward, you're going to be even more responsible because we don't have one entity who we can trust to tell us the truth. We don't have one. So your job is to be, quote unquote, informed or quote unquote educated, as people like to use these terms. And people often use these terms more as adjectives, more than they use them as adjectives as far as their personal feelings, more than they use them as a descriptor of how much information or education you actually have. In other words, I talked about this yesterday. When someone agrees with the things that I'm saying, they'll compliment me by saying I'm educated and informed. and intelligent. And when someone disagrees with me, they'll say, well, you're spreading misinformation and lies and you don't know what you're talking about and you're uneducated. So people use it based on a reflection. People use it as a reflection of their personal feelings rather than a reflection of anything that they can actually describe. Or they'll pick one little thing. They'll pick something out of context and say, oh, because you said that, then you're uninformed or you're uneducated. And this is where the world is. This is where discourse is these days. So could this make you cynical and distrustful of everything just because I'm telling you there's no such thing as misinformation, or you believe everything to be misinformation? The answer is yes, it could. And what I say is that if you're a critical thinker, you accept nothing on the surface anyway. If you're a critical thinker, you accept nothing that other people tell you just because somebody told it to you. Just because a certain somebody told you something does not mean you should accept it as true. And just because someone told you something that you already wanted to believe and agree with does not mean you should accept it as true. That's what critical thinking is. That's a strong basis point of critical thinking, is that you question everything, you accept nothing at face value, and you verify everything you're told. You trust no one's information but your own. And the way you get your information is you go look. When somebody tells you something is true, you say, how do you know? They tell you how they know, and then you go check and make sure that what they told you is true. Now, this takes more effort, more thinking, and more time than it would if you could just accept what somebody else told you. So what does that mean? There are three truths about human beings that all of you should always keep in mind. Most people do not think, most people do not read, and most people are lazy. These are just general rules about people. They don't think, they don't read, and they're lazy. So what I just explained to you, the way to actually be informed these days and know what's true and what's not true is that you have to think, you have to read, and you have to put effort into it. Those go against the grain of three basic truths of human beings, which means what? Most people are not educated, most people are not informed, and they're not interested in becoming educated nor informed. So could this lead to a cynical way of looking at life, since most people are not educated nor informed, if what I just proposed to you is to be believed? The answer is yes, it is. What do you do? What do you do in this situation? How do you guard against this? I just told you. You have to be one of the people who is willing to think, you're willing to read, and you're going to put the effort into having actual information and thinking and learning for yourself. You got to be willing to do this. If you're not willing to do it, then you will be led around by your nose by whatever you hear on the internet or what you see in the media or whatever you hear and decide to accept coming from your friends and family, whether they are educated or not. So what one side calls misinformation, the other side just calls a different perspective. And this is my issue with the very concept of misinformation. Even on TikTok, I've gotten 10 different suspensions on TikTok over the last 10 months, literally 10 different suspensions. And I would say about 8 or 9 of them were because TikTok claimed, or their AI system claimed, that I had spread some form of quote unquote misinformation in my live stream. And what they say, when I look at the community guideline note about misinformation on TikTok, and other platforms have similar things, they say, well, while we want all of our creators to share their opinions and have a diversity of thoughts, et cetera, we still must abide by an accepted set of facts. That's what TikTok's community guidelines say, at least the last time I looked. That's what it said. Here's the problem with that, is that who created this accepted set of facts? Who is the gatekeeper of this accepted set of facts? And what are these accepted facts that we must operate by? Because if TikTok would just give me a list of all the accepted facts that we must operate by, well, a couple of things would happen. There's a reason why they don't do it. One thing that would happen is I would actually look at the list and see, okay, here are the things that they agree with, here are the things they don't agree with. They wouldn't do that because they would be exposing themselves, first of all. And secondly, what I would do is I would get that whole list and I would do a live stream making fun of it. So that's the reason why they don't put it out. So they don't actually tell you what you said that was misinformation. That's the problem. Every time I've been suspended, I look at the suspension notice and I'm like, okay, what exactly did I say that they're calling misinformation? They don't tell you. That's the problem. At least YouTube, back in the day during the virus, they would at least tell you what you said that was allegedly misinformation and why they were demonetizing your video or your entire channel. TikTok doesn't do that. They just say, well, misinformation. Well, I was talking for 2 hours. What I said. I did a 2-hour live stream. You can't tell me exactly what I said that was misinformation, but I'm suspended and don't even know what I did wrong. So I might say the same thing all over again the next time. So what I do wrong? And they won't tell you. And it's not that they can't tell you, it's that they won't tell you because they want to keep it as arbitrary as possible. And this is my problem with anyone trying to be a gatekeeper of information and labeling something as acceptable information or misinformation. This is one of the big problems with it. And all of you should have the same problem, regardless of where you stand on any subject, is that if someone decides or someone is labeled or they name themselves the gatekeeper of what is misinformation and what is disinformation, such as a teacher, a politician, a news network, or a social media platform, if they won't tell you exactly what pieces are good information and what is misinformation. They won't tell you. They're just holding the power to strike down anything that they decide is misinformation. The problem is you were going off the whims and the feelings of an individual person. And last time I checked, every single one of us has our own opinions. We got our own feelings. We got our own whims. We got our own perspectives on things. Why do I need to abide by the way you feel about certain topics? If I feel the masks don't work and you feel the masks do work, that's fine. All right? I should not be able to censor you from saying that. And you should not be able to censor me from saying what I'm saying. Same thing when it comes to the jab. Same thing when it comes to anything else, any other subject on which people are widely divided and have strong opinions. Everyone should be able to express their opinion. And there is no one king or queen of information that I know of that they can decide what's okay to be talked about and what's not okay to be talked about. But the social media platforms, they do this again, and it's so gray that you don't even know what they're pushing back against you on. You just know they're pushing back. This is one of the challenges of building a business on social media, which you should not do. None of you should build your business on social media. You can use social media. Do not build your business on social media because they have all the control. They have all the leverage, and they can take away your access whenever they feel like it just by an arbitrary enforcement of a rule that is not even clear enough that you even understand what you did wrong. And I'm talking about all the social media platforms, so be very careful with that. Truth, ladies and gentlemen, what we call truth. The way I describe truth is all the facts in full context. That's how I describe truth. So some people say facts. This is the reason why I don't like the term facts, because any fact can be pulled out of context. Very easy to pull a fact out of context and just tell people the facts that you want them to know while ignoring the facts that you don't want them to know in order to paint a certain picture and push people to a certain conclusion. The truth, however, is all the facts in complete context. Not only the facts that you want people to know about, but also the facts that you don't want them to know about, and all the context to make all the facts connect to each other. That's called the truth. The job of a journalist, those people who no longer exist, the job of a journalist is to find the truth and to tell everybody the truth. That's what journalism means. Get to the truth. It doesn't matter what the truth is, and it doesn't matter where the truth leads. If you are a journalist, your job is to get to the truth. The reason why there are so few journalists these days is because the networks and the companies that used to pay journalists, they all decided to take sides, especially over the last 10 to 15 years. And because they took a side, they can no longer pay a journalist, because the job of a journalist is not to be on the side. The job of a journalist is just to find out the truth. It doesn't matter what it is. If the truth happens to go in this direction, that's where we're going. If the truth goes in that direction, that's where we're going. And whatever the truth ends up being is what it ends up being. That is not something the everyday citizen is interested in anymore. And this is the reason why we don't have journalism. Because journalism is objective, because it's all about the truth. The truth is just what it is. The truth does not have a side. It's not Democrat. It's not Republican. It's not on this side of an issue. It's not on that side of an issue. It just is what it is. And since people have chosen to take sides, you can't be a journalist anymore and have a full-time career. It's very difficult. All the journalists these days now have Substacks, and they got paid platforms. That's the only way they can earn a living, by actually telling you the truth. And there is an audience of people who want it, but the audience has gotten smaller. That's the issue. So when one side calls something information, another side calls it a different perspective. And a lot of things that were at one point misinformation, now all of a sudden they're accepted as true. All right. Can any of you think of a few? All right. There are several. You think back to the virus 5 years ago. There's a lot of things that were labeled misinformation or disinformation at the time. Now we generally accept that was pretty accurate. So you got to be very careful. Again, when people are calling things misinformation or conspiracy theory, or they're just trying to, for whatever reason, block you from consuming it, that should tell you something. That should tell you something. You got to look into what exactly is that. And again, journalists used to do this for you. Now you got to do it for yourself. Truth has always been filtered through power and agenda, what I just call truth. There are certain truths that were acceptable and certain truths that are not acceptable, depending on who's in charge and who's controlling the platform, whatever platform you're sharing your message with. Again, if I worked at CNN and I found that the truth is these things that, let's say, Donald Trump is doing are actually good, you couldn't share that truth on CNN, because CNN has decided we're on this side of the conversation. So even though that truth may be true, you're not going to say that on any of our shows on our network, because they're the ones with the power. They're the ones with the platform. So if they decide this is the way it's going to come out, that's the way it's going to come out. When Obama was president and Fox News decided we're going to try to make him look bad every day, anything positive about him, they didn't tell you that part. They told you the part that made him look bad. Why? Because they have the platform and they decided this is the way that we want to put the message out. And all of us as citizens, we started to notice this. Okay, everyone is leaning one side or another side. We don't know who to trust. This is why we're in an information war. I've talked about this damn near every day. The reason we're in an information war is because we do not have any trusted arbiter of actual truth who has given us the facts objectively. We don't have anyone who's doing it. And if we do, we don't agree on who that person is. There are some people who listen to, let's say, me on certain subjects. You say, this guy's telling the truth and he has the facts and he's giving us context and he knows his stuff. But there are other people who listen to the same thing that you're listening to and say, this guy's an idiot. He's dumb. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And again, this is my point. Neither one is right nor wrong. And how can you prove the other person wrong? You can't. This is why we're in an information war. Anybody can come up with their own information and their own way of looking at information, and they can go on some AI bot and create information faster than you can consume it, and multiply that by 330 million people just in America alone, 8 billion if you're talking about the whole world. How can we ever get on the same page when it comes to information ever again? The answer is we will not ever be on the same page ever again. So it's not actually not a war, because wars end. So I don't even know what you want to call this. I don't know what's the word for a conflict that just never ends. It just goes on forever. The information situation. That's probably what we should call it, because it ain't going away. So truth has always been filtered through whoever has the power. Now, the issue is another issue. Without any standard, everybody just believes what feels good, not what's actually true. And this is where we are right now. Where we are in the world today is that people believe whatever makes them feel good, whatever touches their ego, whatever pleases their emotions, and whatever basically rhymes with what they already believed before they came across the new information. So people just agree with whatever they like because there's no standard. So whatever feels good, I'm going to go with that. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. It just feels good to me. This is the reason why persuasion matters. Persuasion and influence matter more than facts. There's a guy named Scott Adams. Some of you may know of Scott. He used to write this cartoon called Dilbert. I think he still writes it, but he pretty much got canceled in a lot of places because he came out in 2015 saying that he thought Trump was going to win way before Trump actually won, and Trump did actually win. So he was vindicated, but he got basically blackballed out of all the work, the corporate type work he was doing. But Scott wrote a book right after the 2016 election, came out maybe 2017. The book is called Win Bigly, and he talks about persuasion in a world where facts don't matter. And there's one of the things that he talked big about in that book is that facts don't matter. And he's right. And I wish he was not right. I wish he was wrong. I wish facts did matter, because I'm a very logical thinker. I like to speak in a very logical and objective way. At least I think that I do. And I am really good at pointing out when people's arguments are more based in their emotions and feelings than when they're based in logic. But the reality is, the world that we're in today, touching people's feelings and emotions through narrative is more persuasive and more effective than simply giving people the logic and the facts. That's actually always been true, but it's become super true these days. And the reason it's super true these days is because each of us can get on a social media platform and only consume material that fits around what we want to see and what we want to hear. This is the reason why they have the algorithm. Everybody here is familiar with the term algorithm, which is not a new word, but since we all start using social media, everybody knows what the algorithm means now. What's the algorithm? The algorithm is a formula, basically, that looks at a whole bunch of data points that you don't know about, and it determines, based on its data that you don't know about you, what you're most likely to click on, watch, comment on, or what's going to keep you on the app. That's the algorithm. Now, what is the algorithm designed to do? It's designed to give you more of what it thinks you already like, what you've already been paying attention to, and what you might pay more attention to. Notice that the algorithm usually doesn't give you a whole bunch of random stuff that is not sure about. The only time the algorithm gives you something random is when you are new to the app or you haven't used it at all. That's when it'll give you random things. It's just throwing things out there just to see what you respond to. But once you give it some data, once you start clicking on anything on the Explore tab or the For You page of an algorithm, now the algorithm is taking in that information and is finding out, is learning about you every second you spend on the app. And the whole point is, it's just going to give you more of what you want. And the more it gives you what you want, well, guess what you do? You're kind of like a cat or a dog when you're rubbing his belly. What does a cat or a dog do when you're rubbing his belly? Doesn't do anything. It just stays there and lets you keep doing it. That's the exact thing that the algorithm does. It's just going to give you more of that because it calculates that if we keep giving you more of what you've already proven to want, And then it's working because you're clicking on it and watching it and commenting and saving and liking photos and following people and all that stuff. If you're doing that, what does that mean? You're going to spend more time on the app. Now, why do they care if you spend more time on the app? The way all the social media apps make money is through selling advertising to big brand advertisers, not you all spending your $100 a day. That's not where they make most of their money. They make most of their money by getting $100,000 a month from companies like Amazon and Nike, actually even more money than that. That's where their real money comes from. It's not from everyday people. And the way that they're able to sell advertising to big brand advertisers who are not even counting the ROI on their ads, those are the ones that advertising salespeople like the most because they're not being held accountable for their ad dollars actually making the money back. Whereas if you're a small business owner, your ad dollars got to make you money back because you can go out of business. But Amazon spends as much money as they want on ads, and they don't even have to calculate the ROI if they don't want to because they got so much money. And this is who the social media platforms love selling to for multiple reasons. They got the biggest wallets and they're not holding anything accountable. There's no ROI necessary. So they go to Amazon. If I own a social media app, I can go to Amazon and say, hey, look at these people. I know that they're interested in this, and this. You advertise these things. How about you pay us to advertise to these people on our app? All right, we guarantee you they're going to be here. Here's their watch time. Here's what they click on. All you got to do is run your ads in these places. We'll tell you exactly where to run the ads, and we're going to help them out. We want them to run the ads in the right places because we want them to see that their ads are working, or at least think that their ads are working. And this is how the social media apps make money. So just to put this in simplest terms, social media apps make money by monetizing your time and attention, selling your time and attention to the big brand advertisers. And the big brand advertisers ostensibly are making their money back by advertising products to you that you then go buy. So there's an entire economy happening based on this. And the only person not making money is you. Social media app makes money. The advertiser makes money. You're the product and you ain't making no money. This is how social media works, in case any of you didn't know. So every app that I told you I'm streaming on right now, TikTok, Instagram, Rumble, X, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, they all work this way. All of them work this way. You are being monetized. You're the only one not getting paid. So y'all thought slavery was over. No, it's not. So people are smart enough to make their own decisions if they're given all the information. This is the Barney and Friends way of looking at life. And I tend to subscribe to this with an asterisk, with a caveat. So people are smart enough to make their own decisions if given all sides. I want to play the game that way, even though I know that's actually not true. Most people are not very smart. Most people do not think, they don't read, and they're lazy. I already told you that. But even though most people don't think, don't read, and are lazy, I still would rather everyone be able to get every piece of information that's out there, regardless of how anyone else feels about it, and they get to make their own decisions. So if you make a stupid decision, you have every right to be stupid. If you end up not knowing what you're talking about, you have a right to not know what you're talking about. If you are completely misinformed, you have a right to be misinformed. If you just have complete inaccurate information, you have a right to have inaccurate information. And if you want to go talking to people about the things that you think you know that are not actually true, you have a right to do that. Why? Because in the United States, the First Amendment says you have freedom of speech. Freedom of speech not only means you can say whatever you want to say within legal reason, it also means that everybody else can say what they want to say within legal reason, which means you have a right to hear what other people have to say. So I don't want you telling me you can't hear what this guy said or what this girl said simply because you, whoever is in control of the stage, says, well, it's misinformation, so I don't want anybody to hear it, so we're not going to let this person talk. Bullshit. Everybody should be able to talk. Even if what they're saying is really dumb, they should be able to talk. Why? Because if what they're saying is really dumb, then the other smart people in the space who hear them in the open marketplace of ideas will expose their nonsense. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way the open marketplace works, is that you put your stuff out there and other smart people will look at it, scrutinize it, criticize it. And if your stuff can't stand up to scrutiny and criticism, then it's going to get exposed. And then you got to go back quiet and you got to come up with something better. That's the way the open marketplace works. And if the open marketplace ceases to be an open marketplace, i.e. the government or some platform or some social media app is deciding this is not an open marketplace anymore because you can't just say whatever you want to say. We're going to start gatekeeping what can and cannot be said. We don't have an open marketplace anymore. Now someone is controlling the flow of information. Who do you want controlling your flow of information? Again, open question. Who do you want? Name a person. Give me a name. Who's a person you're okay with them controlling the flow of information that comes to you? Answer for me is nobody. There's no one I believe should control the flow of information that comes from me. I don't care who they are. I don't care how much money they got. I don't care what position they have. I don't care if they've been elected. I don't care how smart they're supposed to be. I don't want anyone controlling the flow of information to me. I want all of it. And I will think on my own volition what I want to accept and what I don't want to accept. I don't want anyone else making that decision for me. I don't know about the rest of you. Now, as I just said, not everybody wants to think critically. Not everyone is even capable of thinking critically. Most people just want someone to tell them what to believe. Is that true? Yes, it's true. Of course it's true. This is the reason why persuasion matters more than facts. Because if all you needed was facts, then everybody could just get all the facts and they could think for themselves and decide on their own. Do most people operate that way? Of course not. Most people just wait for someone to tell them what to think. Again, this is the reason why people get excited about a politician or excited about what you hear on TV or excited about what you see on social media. You're just waiting for someone who you trust for whatever reason that you trust them or you like them for whatever reason that you like them. Let them tell you something and then you'll go along with that. So you hear a lot of people saying this about Donald Trump is a good example. So they say, well, Donald Trump comes out and he says this, and he might be lying and he's not telling the truth. And he says all these things and then he gets his supporters. This is what people who don't like Trump say. They get his supporters who are not very smart and not very educated and not very intelligent to buy into the lies that Donald Trump is putting out. That's what people say negatively about Donald Trump and his followers. The problem with that is the following. Number one, that anyone opposing Donald Trump, they do the exact same thing, and the people who support them are doing the exact same thing. I don't know how it all of a sudden became a thing that if you support Trump, you are not that informed, but if you don't support Trump, then you must be the smart one. That sounds very good. It's a very convenient argument, but is it true? No, it's not. Because if you are getting all your information from one source or another source, and you are not vetting that information yourself, regardless of how you emotionally feel about it, you are just as ignorant as the other person. Ignorance simply means to not know something. And if you are just going off what someone told you, regardless of who the someone is, it could be your own mama. If you're just going off what they said without vetting their information, you are just as ignorant as anyone else. Just because you decide to go with somebody that you like and they decide to follow someone that you don't like, that doesn't mean that you're smart and that they're dumb. And it doesn't mean that you're dumb and they're smart. Both of you are ignorant. Neither one of you know what you're doing because both of you are accepting information at face value without vetting it. Most human beings do this all day, every day. So if this is the game that we're playing, then everybody is functionally ignorant. I mean, that's how we're going to play if we're going to be fair. So this whole concept of thinking critically, most people do not partake in critical thinking. Most people don't even know what it is, let alone do they partake in it. Most people just want someone to tell them what to believe. And guess what? That works. This is the reason why if you want to be in politics, one of your main jobs is to lie to your audience. And you may be lying intentionally, or you may be lying covertly by simply omitting certain things or taking facts out of context and telling them the facts that serve you, ignoring the facts that don't serve you. Every politician does this. Every senator, every congressman, every mayor, every governor, every president. They all do it. Nobody is exempt. Nobody does it more than everybody else. They all do it the same amount. It's just some people get called out for doing it and some people get ignored when they do it, but they're all doing it. Why do they do this? Because the only way you can move masses of people is to tell them things that make them feel good. Please understand. Let me say that point again because I want y'all to understand. The reason politics in America is what it is because the only way you can move masses of people, i.e. get them to vote for you, that's how you become a politician or an elected politician. Only way you can get people to vote for you is you have to tell them things that make them feel good. You cannot get people to vote for you by telling them the truth because the truth is often neutral or it might make somebody feel actually a little bit bad. You might expose somebody by telling them the truth. You can't get masses of people by telling them the truth. You can get a percentage of people by telling the truth because there's a percentage of people out there who want to think critically. They want to be challenged. They want to cure themselves of their ignorance and they want to hear things that may be uncomfortable truths to them. There's a percentage of people who are open to this, about 2% of people. You put 100 people in a room, maybe 2 of that 100 people are interested in something like that. About 2 out of every 100. And in the country of the United States, how many people we got here? Let's just say it's 330 million. It's probably more than that, but let's just say 330 million. And 2%, that gives us what? 6 billion. I mean, excuse me, that's 6 million. 6,600,000 people. So let's say about 7 million people. Out of the whole country of the United States, about 7 million people are open to being intellectually challenged and asked to think critically. Everybody else, you got to tell them what makes them feel good to get them on your side. You get them on your side. You tell them to go vote. They vote for you. You win. Now you're president. Now you're governor. Now you're mayor. So any of you want to know why I'm not involved, why I would never get involved in politics, I just told you. Because to get involved in politics, you can't challenge people to think. Thinking is work. It takes effort. As they say, when presidents win elections, usually the person who wins is the person who speaks on a lower grade level of comprehension. Why is that? So they say somebody like Donald Trump, when he ran for president the first time, the grade level of his speech was like a second grade reading level. So if you took all of Donald Trump's speeches and you transcribed them into words and you put it into like some text analyzer, it would say that a second grader could understand Donald Trump's level of rhetoric. He was speaking on a second grade level. But then you take one of his opponents, take somebody like Hillary Clinton, his first opponent, she was speaking on like an 8th grade reading level. So to understand her, you had to have at least an 8th grade education. But to understand Trump, you only need a 2nd grade education. And people will look at that and say, well, see, there's proof. Donald Trump is stupid, and he only speaks to the stupid people. That's the reason why he won. That's what we call cope, is what that is. It's cope because it makes the people who didn't vote for him feel good because they're positioning themselves as intellectually superior to the people who did vote for him. But what they don't understand is that they're actually exposing their ignorance, because what they don't know is that to win an election, the thing that you must do is exactly what Trump did, which you got to speak on the lowest basis level possible. Why? Because you're trying to reach a mass of people, and most people are not that smart. So if you want to win an election, you got to talk in a very, very simple tone. You can't go over people's heads, because if people don't understand what you're saying, then they can't follow you. This is the reason why Trump has become so popular, because he speaks in very simple terms. That does not mean that he's not smart. That means that he is smart, because as a matter of fact, the smarter you are, the better you understand that to get your point across, you have to speak on a level that your audience can understand. And a really, really smart person, if you speak on a level of your intelligence, you're only talking about 1% of people, because only 1% of people are as smart as you are. So if you want people to understand where you're coming from, you got to meet them where they're at. That's what sales is about. Any of you's done any type of selling. If you never had a job in sales, you should get one. In sales, your job is to meet your prospect where they are. You got to meet them where they are intellectually. You got to meet them where they are informationally. You got to meet them where they are emotionally. And when you do that, get on the same page as them, you are much more likely to influence and persuade them into buying your products and your services. But if you're speaking about what you know all the way up here, and their level of intelligence is all the way down here, and you stay up here and they can't get up there because they're not smart enough to get up there, you're not going to make a sale. And politics, by the way, when you're in an election, it is a sales job. It's sales. The reason Donald Trump won 2 elections is because he's a great salesperson. The reason Kamala didn't win because she ain't no salesperson. How many jobs in sales has she ever had? None. How many jobs has Hillary Clinton had in sales? None. All right. Do you think this is a coincidence? Salespeople win elections because they know how to sell. And to sell, you got to meet your audience where it's at. And if your audience is 30 people, you can get very detailed and find out who these 30 people are. You're speaking to an audience of molecular biologists. You can get right to it from the very beginning, start talking in scientific language that most of us wouldn't even know what you were talking about. But if you're talking to 330 million people, you got to keep it really, really, really simple, because most of those people ain't that smart. If you want to win, if your goal is to win. Now, if your goal is to impress people and show them how smart you are, then you go ahead and talk on the 8th grade level like Hillary Clinton, and you can lose. But if you want to win, you got to talk to people where they're at. So most people don't want to think critically. They just want someone to tell them what to believe. And the only way you get that kind of trust with an audience of people is that they have to believe that you understand where they're at. You understand that? That's how you get trust with people. They had to believe that you understand them. What did Donald Trump do really well? I mean, Donald Trump is allegedly a billionaire, right? He's a billionaire. He's supposed to be some New York, Manhattan elitist with gold toilets coming down a gold escalator. All right, he's supposed to be one of the oligarchs, right? According to Bernie Sanders. Isn't that who he's supposed to be? So how is it, explain this, how is it that Donald Trump got the votes of the common person, being that he's supposed to be some Manhattan elitist with billions of dollars and all these model women he's running around with? And again, he has golden toilets and he's an oligarch with $1 billion. How is he able to get the ear and the trust of the everyday common citizen? It's an interesting question that very few people have really explored. And here's the reason why, is because even though he is those things, allegedly, this Manhattan billionaire, he spoke to the audience in a language that they can understand, that he understood where they were at. And that's why he won. He met them where they were. Whereas you get somebody like Hillary Clinton, you get even Joe Biden. Joe Biden did it a little bit better because Joe Biden, he had the whole Scranton Joe, and I'm this small town all shucks guy, and I just been in politics trying to help people out. He did it better than Hillary, and he did it better than Kamala. That's the reason why he was able to at least give himself a puncher's chance. Kamala, Hillary Clinton, they couldn't do it. They were a little bit too highbrow for their audiences, and the audience is like, all right, you don't understand us at all. You don't understand where we're coming from at all. If you want to win an election in the United States of America, you got to speak to the everyday common person making $40,000 a year and just trying to make sure they pay their bills and that they can put food on the table. That's the person you got to get. You can't get them, you ain't winning. Donald Trump got them. That's why he won. That's it. And to get them, you have to speak their language, not your language, not your PhD, not your law degree, not your advanced degree, not your being informed, not your being educated. See, all these things that people talk about, that they use this language as a way to put themselves above other people. This is the exact reason why you can't persuade people. So the thing that a lot of people think is a strength is actually a weakness. And if you listen to my lives or watch my lives on a regular basis, you see it in the comments, especially on TikTok every day. You see people coming in here talking about, well, you're not, that doesn't make you smart. Are you educated? Do you have a degree? You don't have this. This person's not that smart. You don't know that. See, those very things that people try to use to try to put themselves above you is the exact reason why you're unable to influence large groups of people, because you're trying to put yourself above them. And when you start talking over people's heads, you lose their attention because they can't follow what the hell you're saying. So what I tell people all the time, especially when you're an expert at what you do, and you're talking about anything from a position of expertise, is your job, if you're talking to people who do not have your expertise, again, if you're a scientist speaking at a conference of scientists, then go ahead, speak at a high level because they already get it. But if you're stepping out of your space and talking to people who are not in your space and you want them to understand you, you got to do what I call the fifth grader test. So I remember that TV show that said, are you smarter than a fifth grader? Are you smarter than a fifth grader? You got to talk as if you're talking to a fifth grader. So if you were talking to a room full of, in fifth grade is what, about 10 years old? So you're talking to a room full of 10-year-olds about what you do for a living, that you know on an expert level. Can you help 10-year-olds understand you? Yes or no? Can you help a 10-year-old understand what you do for a living? If you had to explain it to them in a way that they could not only get it and follow it, but then they could go and explain it to somebody else. If you can't do that, that's a communication, that's work you need to do on your communication skills. Part of communication is getting your point across. It's not just saying what you want to say. It's getting your point across. What does that mean? That means not only did you say it, but the audience understood it. Those are two different things. I could talk to you all day about a subject that could just go over your head. You wouldn't understand it. I said it, but did you get it? No. To get it, you got to understand it. And for you to understand what I'm saying is my job, not your job. It's the job of the speaker. So if you're a speaker, whether you're doing a sales presentation, you are talking to some girl in the mall, you are running for political office, or you're a teacher teaching a class, the job, the outcome of the audience understanding what you said is on you, not on them. What does that mean? And this is what I've said to a lot of people who try to that's not the word I want to use. They want to try to insult, let's say, anyone who supported Trump by saying, well, Trump got all the uneducated people to vote for him and all the educated people voted for Kamala. Well, that's a problem because there are more uneducated people than there are educated people. And the goal is to win the election. You got to reach the uneducated people because that's the only way you're going to win. If you're only talking to the educated people, you ain't going to win. What are you doing? If you just want to talk to educated people, go get a job at a college. Election, you better talk to the uneducated because there's a whole lot more of them and they all can vote. They all got the same number of votes as the smart people, quote unquote. So the point is, when you're speaking to an audience, you have to get your point across to them and they have to understand it. And the only way you can do that is you got to understand what they understand so that you can speak to them where they're at. And if you don't understand what they understand and you go above them, they won't get it. They won't follow you. They won't trust you. They will not be persuaded by you. And therefore, they can't and won't vote for you. Some of y'all can get this message across to Hillary and Kamala or maybe the next woman who comes around, because I think it's a very small sample size with Hillary and Kamala, but I think it is a thing that the women who have run, these two women, have had this subconsciously, this thing of let me prove that I'm smart. And they're going against a guy who, again, very small sample size, but they're going against this guy and they're trying to put themselves above him. They both try to put themselves above him on an ethical, moral, and an intellectual level. They both did this and they both made that mistake. Joe Biden didn't quite do that. Joe Biden didn't do much. He had to do a lot that election. He just had to hide in the basement. Again, very small sample size, but I hope y'all understand what I'm saying. These are highly educated women, both law degrees, right? Hillary was a lawyer, Kamala, prosecutor, so both law degrees, both advanced degrees, college elites, and they both coastal elites as well, and they both wanted to show how smart they were. All right, a woman can be smart, a woman can be strong, and a woman can beat this man who's a bully. So they all wanted to go highbrow on him, and that was their exact downfall. They actually did the wrong thing. So the very thing they thought was a strength actually became a weakness, if you understand what I'm saying. So controlling misinformation, back to our main point here, it's just rebranding. It's just a rebranding of censorship. There's no such thing as controlling misinformation. You can't control information, folks. I can go on ChatGPT right now, and I can create 10 5,000 word articles in the next, probably in the next 10 minutes. And I can publish them all to a blog or a Substack or social media. 5,000 words, 10 of them. So that's 50,000 words in 10 minutes. How can you control misinformation when information is being created faster than we can consume it? Answer is you can't control it. All you can do is try to censor information by saying, if you say this word or that word, or you express this opinion or that opinion, or if you're this person, we're going to block you from saying anything. That's censorship. That's not controlling misinformation. That's censorship. They just came up with a new word for it to make it sound okay. Because if I said, we're going to censor anybody who says this, you might push back against that. But if I say I'm just blocking misinformation, you might be okay with that. All this is a language game. That's all this is. History books, ladies and gentlemen. History, if you break the word down, is what? His story. History is just a story. That's all it is. History is a story, which means what? Just because something's in a history book does not mean it is accurate. Doesn't mean it's true. It doesn't mean it actually happened. Something's in a history book. All that means is somebody wrote it down and asserted that that happened. And since none of us was around to see it, we can either believe it or not believe it. I mean, how many arguments do you see people having about things that happen historically? You see these arguments happening all the time. Did that happen? Did that not happen? Well, this is in a museum and this happened. And people are trying to erase history. History is a story of events. That's what history is, a story of events. You can't erase a story of events because I can just tell a story. A story is not a physical object. An event is not a physical object. So there's no such thing as erasing history. So anybody you see using that language doesn't make any sense. So history books are full of, again, some quote unquote misinformation that was once considered truth. There was a time when I was going to school I'm talking like elementary school, we learned that Christopher Columbus discovered America. That's what we were told. Christopher Columbus discovered America. He sailed over here in 1492 and hit the Pilgrims and the Indians, that they called them. They had a great first feast together to celebrate their first year together, and they called it Thanksgiving. And there was this beautiful feast between the Pilgrims and the Indians all working together. Now, over the years, we've come to realize that that story is directionally accurate, but is that what really happened? Not really. Or is it? We don't know because none of us was around in 1492, and we are just going off of what we have decided to accept. Okay, some people say he discovered it. Some people say, no, he didn't discover it. There are people here already. Well, he discovered it for the people over there because they didn't know about it. So technically he did, technically he did, depending on the way you want to look at it. And this is the whole point. This is the reason why we're in the information war. Y'all see, just from that little example, you can frame things whatever way you want to frame them. And if everything is relative, then everything becomes an opinion. And this is exactly where we're at. Everything's relative. So did Christopher Columbus discover America? Well, it depends. What do you consider to be discovered? He discovered it for the people over in Europe who didn't know there was land over here. Did he discover it for them? Yes. Did he discover it absolutely? No, because the land was already there and there were people there. So he didn't for the entirety of humanity discover it, but he did discover it for a whole lot of people who ended up coming over here and populating what we now have as the United States of America. So everything's relative, which means the better you are persuading and explaining, the better you will be at getting your point across. Everybody understanding this? Communication skills are the key these days. Nobody has a monopoly on truth, and there is no such thing as a fact checker. There's no such thing as a fact checker. Who's the fact checker? Who do you trust to be the fact checker for your life? I don't trust anybody. I don't want anyone to be my fact checker. All right, now you can tell me what you got. You give me the information you have compiled, but I'm going to make the final decision. You give me everything you got, final decision is made by me. So I don't want anybody fact checking me. And I don't want anybody telling me that they've done the fact checking and I don't need to question them or challenge them on anything they said. I disagree. So some say there are real stakes when false information spreads. Is this a legitimate argument? Yes, it is. There are real stakes. So let's say someone's spreading false information or misinformation or disinformation about a jab or about some medicine or about some pharmaceutical. And if people get the wrong information, They might end up taking the wrong action that can end up hurting them, and physically, they can end up losing their lives. They can hurt family members. It can hurt a lot of people if people get the wrong information, and false information has spread. Well, the challenge is, again, who is the ultimate arbiter? I say if someone gets bad information and they end up acting on that bad information, they end up in a bad space because of the bad information, they are to blame. And they have free will to act on what ends up being bad information or act on what ends up being good information. But every human being has free will to make their own decisions. And if you end up messing up, well, you got to own the fact that you messed up. That's the way I see it. I'm an absolutist when it comes to this kind of thing. That I do not believe in any entity having overreach as to tell you what you can and cannot believe or accept or consume under the guise of I'm trying to protect you. Now, I do believe in one: parents. If you're a parent and you got a child living under your roof, then you're allowed to tell the kid, no, you cannot have pizza for breakfast. No, you cannot have some ice cream 5 minutes before you go to bed. I do believe in that. But other than that, adults telling adults what they can and can't consume and do and listen to, no, I'm not a fan of that. I'm absolutely against this, and I'm absolutely against it. And if you happen to take in some bad information and you mess up because you took in bad information, well, you got to own that. All right, you did it. You got to own it. So free speech means that some bad information will circulate. All right, that's the cost. It's cost of free speech. Cost of free speech is that somebody's going to say something you don't like. And you should not want to block anybody's free speech just because they said something that offended you or something that you disagree with. That's what free speech means. Free speech means everybody says what they want to say in an open marketplace of ideas, and you got to deal with the fact that people can say what they want. They got to deal with the fact that you can say what you want. That's how it goes. And if you can't deal with that, then you are, well, I guess that makes you unconstitutional, doesn't it? So information is also often labeled misinformation because it threatens the status quo. This is one of the biggest problems. And the status quo is maintained by people who have some type of power influence in certain aspects. They call things misinformation when it goes against the grain of what they want you to believe. And again, think back to the virus 5 years ago. How much stuff was put out there by independent people rather, and then it was labeled by the powers that be as misinformation. And then later on, we found out it wasn't misinformation. It was actually accurate information. They just didn't want you to hear it. How much of that happened? We know a whole lot of that happened. So this is used as a way to discredit another voice without debate. And I just told you, the open marketplace of ideas. I'm an entrepreneur. And in entrepreneurship, you go into the open marketplace and you prove it. As an athlete, you go into the open marketplace and you prove it. My background is in sports, and now I'm an entrepreneur. Those are my frames. Open marketplace. I am not a fan of anyone blocking off or sealing off or creating barriers to entry to the open marketplace when it comes to information or people. Let everybody into the marketplace. And if you're good, you get to stay. And if you suck, you got to go home. That's how it works. Right now, it's playoffs in basketball. You win, you stay. You lose, you go home. The same way information works. So this term misinformation, again, is just a term made up to discredit people. Now, some narratives get proven false by outcomes, not opinions. This I agree with. All right, if you say that that's an apple tree, and you keep asserting this an apple tree, you can tell everybody in the world is an apple tree, and everybody has to accept that it's an apple tree. And then when the fruits start coming out and we see that the fruit is oranges, then, okay, you've been disproven. The open marketplace proves that you're wrong. Now everybody's laughing at you, and you got to hold yourself, you got to be held accountable for that. And now next time you say something, people are going to take what you say. They got to think about what you said last time. Okay, you hurt your credibility last time, so we got to be careful about listening to you this time. That's the way the open marketplace works. The results determine who ends up as who. Not somebody just deciding arbitrarily, well, we're going to listen to you, but we're not going to listen to them. I completely disagree with this. So labeling something as misinformation is just a way to avoid engaging with it. If you engage with it, it'll be obvious. If I say that's an apple tree and oranges start coming off of it, I can't sit there and say, oh, well, no, apple's going to come out tomorrow. No, you judge the fruit by its trees. You judge the person by their outcomes and by their results. That's why we had an open marketplace. Now, there are some people out there who genuinely, on purpose, this is what they said about the R country during the 2016 election. They genuinely and on purpose spread bad information as a way to junk up what was happening in our election cycle. Do I believe that there are people out there? I'm not even saying any country. Are there people out there who are just, what do they call them? They call them like chaos agents, right? So they just want to create chaos. So they'll just go create bad information on purpose, knowing that it's bad information, and spread it, knowing that they're spreading bad information. This is a way to create chaos amongst everyone else. Do I believe there are people who do this? Yes, I do believe people who do this. I do believe there are people doing this, and they will continue to do it, and they should be allowed to do it. Open marketplace. They should be allowed to do it. Even if they're doing it on purpose to mess things up, they should do it. And if people are dumb enough to fall for it, hey, they got to get smarter. That's how it is. How many of you fell for something during the virus that if you knew then what you know now, you wouldn't have fell for it? It says, which of these objects has a canopy and a handle? I'm looking at the capture on TikTok. They keep giving me these. Which of these objects has 4 legs? What the hell? I don't see anything that has 4 legs. I see a guitar. I see a pineapple, a chair, TikTok. These are a little bit too hard. Which of these objects has a brim? Okay, that one I can get right. All right, so there I go. I'm smart enough to handle a TikTok captcha on my 3rd try, or third one. I rolled the barrel 3 times on that one. So platforms and institutions lie too, don't they? I mean, did the Center for Disease Control tell us truths in 2020? Or is everything they said the truth? I don't think so. So, but they get to call it official guidance. But if you say that they're not telling the truth, then you are the misinformation agent. How is that? I just told you. The people who have the power on certain platforms can decide what's true and what's not. I'm not a fan of that concept. The truth, ladies and gentlemen, does not need protection. There's no such thing as protecting the truth. The truth is just what it is. The truth is self-evident. I think that's said in it's either Declaration of Independence. They said that, right? These truths are self-evident. Was that the Declaration of Independence? I believe it was. Truth is self-evident, folks. It doesn't need anyone to argue for it. You could try to argue against it, you're going to lose. That's why truth is all the facts and all the context. So misinformation sometimes is just outdated, incomplete info. Sometimes it's somebody not knowing what they're talking about. And this is what I say. If someone shares what you may call misinformation, I say, there's no misinformation. There's people who are lying because they know that they're lying. And there are people who just don't know what they're talking about because they either don't have the right information or don't have all the information. But there's no misinformation. It's just you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you don't know. If you silence dissent, you guarantee that the dominant narrative never gets changed. And this is the goal of a lot of powers that be, is that they don't want their narrative changed because it keeps them in power. Not a fan. And the real threat, ladies and gentlemen, is not misinformation. It's the suppression of anything that you don't want to be heard. And I explained this in the beginning, that if you start suppressing messages because you don't want people to hear it, all you're going to do is get people more curious about what you're trying to suppress. So you actually get the opposite of what you're trying to do. I do not blindly believe in any official source. Again, I don't care who it is. The only official source, as far as I'm concerned, is me. Now, I may listen to and trust other folks because they have built up enough reputation with me that I trust what they're going to do, and I trust that what they're saying is at least directionally accurate. But the ultimate arbiter of anything that I accept as true is me. So if you give me some information because I trust you and it ends up being a lie, and you knew you were lying when you gave me the information, and I end up getting hurt by that bad information, I am still responsible because I'm the one who decided to accept what you told me. It is still my responsibility. Just because you gave me some bad info on purpose does not make you liable for my situation. Now, legally, yes, I could take you to court maybe if you're a doctor, and I probably would to get my money, but I still got to take ownership of the situation. Why? Because I'm the one who made the decision. That's the way it works. And when everybody gets to speak, the strongest ideas rise and the weak ones fall flat. Again, I'm an open marketplace absolutist. Everyone should be allowed into the marketplace. And if you can't perform, you can't perform. I'll give you all one story here before I take a quick bathroom break, and then we go to the open discussion. When I was in college, my sophomore year, there was this guy named Rob who was on our campus. And Rob he was roommates with one of the guys who was my teammate. And Rob would often hang around at the basketball gym, and he'd go play like pickup basketball. He wasn't on the team, but his roommate was on the team, and his roommate could play a little bit. Rob couldn't play at all. I seen Rob play; he couldn't really play. But for whatever reason, he was always hanging around the coach's office because the coach was also a recruiter for black students to come to the school. And I went to this school called Penn State Altoona. And one day in the middle of the season, we are ending practice, and the coach is like, everybody's on the baseline. We're talking. It's just us, 12 guys who are on the basketball team. And Rob is standing. He's in the gym, but he's standing off to the side. This was peculiar because the coach would close the doors to the gym when we had practice, and everybody else who wanted to play basketball, because we only had one gym. If you wanted to play ball after practice, you had to wait outside, and when we came out of the gym, then everybody else would go in the gym. But Rob was in the gym. He was standing off to the side quietly, and I noticed him. I'm like, why is he in here? He ain't supposed to be in here. But obviously the coach had let him in. So the coach is about to let us go from practice, and he says, wait a minute, we got one last thing to do. He points over at Rob, and he says, hey, this guy over here, he calls him over. Rob comes over, and we all know him because the campus ain't that big. He says, this guy wants to be on the basketball team. And then he points to our starting point guard, this guy named Lamar, and he says he wants your spot. And then the coach puts the ball down on the free throw line and said, let's go. So basically what he was saying is y'all going to play one-on-one. So we all like, this is crazy. Like, he's trying to play for his spot on the roster against the starting point guard. I didn't think it's going to go too well for Rob. And long story short, there's no surprise here. Rob got his ass kicked. The game went to like 3 or 5, and Rob didn't score, and Lamar beat him 5-0, and that was it. And after that, I never saw Rob come to the basketball gym again, at least not trying to talk his way onto the basketball team, because I guess that's what he done. He talked the coach into, hey, give me a chance to get on the basketball team. And the coach probably just wanted to tell him, no, leave me alone. But what the coach did, this is beautiful, it's one of the best things that particular coach that I played for did, is that he exposed Rob to himself. So he could have just said, Rob, no, you can't get on the team. You tried out, you didn't make it, or you didn't come to tryouts, you can't be on the team. But instead of doing that, here's what the coach did. He said, okay, come to practice, and I'm going to let you play against somebody who is on the team, and they're going to kick your ass so bad, it's going to be obvious that you shouldn't be on the team. So now you can't say shit to me, and you can never ask me to be on the team again because you just exposed yourself by having to play this guy and losing. And so when he lost that game, when Rob lost that game again, I ain't never see him try that again. And the next year, he was like a cheerleader for the basketball team. He didn't even try to get on the team because he had been exposed. He exposed himself to himself. That's what the open marketplace is. That's what I want y'all to understand. The open marketplace is not me telling you, no, you can't do that. Open marketplace is me letting you do it. You lose, and you learn for yourself that you shouldn't do that. Now you told yourself a lesson, and now you got to be quiet. And I got many examples of that, but I'll leave it at that for today. So what I'm going to do right now, folks, we're going to get into the open discussion and the commentaries and all of that. I need to go to the restroom first, so I'm going to let you listen to a little sampling of one of the latest episodes of my podcast. It's called Work on Your Game. Comes out every single day on all your favorite podcasting apps, Spotify, Apple. This is from episode number 3,275, where I'm explaining how all politicians are liars. Give me 90 seconds. I'll be right back. Then we get to the comments. Your opponent wants to do everything that you won't do. Everything that you feel you are above ethically and morally doing, they will do it, and there goes your career. Before it even started. Politics is designed to reward the liars and penalize the people who tell the truth. The reason I couldn't get in politics is not because I don't know how to articulate my point or argue my case. The problem is whoever I'd be running against, all they had to do is get strongly sensational on one side or the other of a conversation in which I am objective and neutral. And all they're going to do is just hammer me on the fact that I'm not as strong on that point as they are. And they'll pick the point that is most likely to sway the vote. And boom, they got me beat. Nothing I can do about it. Except start telling lies just like they are. So there are no successful politicians who tell the truth. Can you name one? Name a successful politician who tells the truth. Successful meaning they win elections. Plural. Name one. You can't name one. Because you can't do it in the United States of America. The system is not set up for you to tell the truth. So it's not that they are all, as people, liars. They are, by being a successful politician, they're liars. Do you want 24/7 access to my mindset, strategy, and business advice? I built Dre GPT 1.0, an AI coach trained on everything I've ever said. It's free, it's smart, and you can go start using it right now at dreallday.com/AI. That's dreallday.com/AI. Link is in the description. Go use it right now. But most people quit when the excitement wears off. Pros, we show up anyway, even when we don't feel like it. That's the third day. If you are inconsistency, lack of motivation, or just... All right, so y'all heard my ad. Y'all haven't messed with my free chat bot called Dre GPT. I think y'all just heard that ad. Y'all can access Dre GPT by going to dreallday.com/AI. It's dreallday.com/AI, and that's a chat bot where you can chat with it as if you're having a chat conversation with me. And again, it's free. All you got to have is a Chat GPT account, which is also free. And if you're not using Chat GPT yet, I suggest that you start. So, all right, Fit Business over on YouTube says, Megan Thee Stallion twerked on stage for Kamala. Yeah, I remember that. IDGAF about hoe twerking on stage doesn't get my uneducated vote, LOL. Well, what it did was get attention. I mean, that was the game that she was playing. It got the attention of a certain demographic. Ultimately, it didn't work out, but she ain't the first one to do it. Hillary had LeBron, Barack Obama had Jay-Z and Beyonce. So they do that because we, as a whole, Black people have responded to that. I think it's wearing off now because Kamala did a lot of it and it didn't work. So I think they might come up with a little bit different strategy next time around. We'll see. Soul Art, good morning, said, most people think they're the arbiter of truth and think they know more than they actually do. The Dunning-Kruger effect is real, SMH. Yeah, well, I know people using the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is kind of like people think they're smart when they're actually dumb. The challenge with that phrase, soul art, is that everybody uses it now when they disagree with somebody. So I would be careful of using that phrase. People say that just when they see something they disagree with. I'm not saying that's you, but I'm saying it gets overused now. So the term has lost its value. Soul art said people like to apply their own context to facts and call it truth, and it's actually their opinion. Well, yes, that's humanity. That's normal. Soul art said CBS producer resigned because he feels he won't be able to convey his truth on 60 Minutes. Yeah, I saw that. But everybody's doing it, though. I mean, it's not, there's so many examples. Democrats rather speak to the undocumented than the uneducated. Well, they almost got away with it if Kamala had won. So y'all be careful. So Arsa, I think Rob played himself by accepting that challenge. Well, he didn't have a choice. He played himself by asking because he figured he could get on the basketball team, because I don't think we were doing that well at that point in the season. But the problem is he couldn't control how it worked. He just wanted a chance. The coach gave him a chance. It just, chance didn't go the way he thought it was going to go. So he played himself by even saying, hey, I can be on the team, when he couldn't play. His problem was that he couldn't play. It wasn't what happened. No matter what circumstance the coach put in front of him to try to make the team, he would have failed because Rob could not play. The coach knew that he couldn't play. The coach just needed to make it obvious to him by letting him demonstrate that he couldn't play rather than explaining that he couldn't play. It was a beautiful stroke of genius by the coach. All right. Bindu Ken Simon, I'm on TikTok now with that comment, said, thank you for sharing this information. You're welcome. High class white trash said, I dislike that these apps keep our world small as contributing factor to emotional immaturity. Well, high class white trash, all due respect, you are using the app. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to use the app. So I'm picking up where as far back as I could go, folks. So if you have a comment before where I'm at, then I can't see it. Big Sam said, to argue that gatekeeping is controlling misinformation is diabolical. So you're comparing me to the devil, Big Sam? That's harsh. Carolyn Musso, thank you for the follow. Big Sam said, I want them to control the disinformation, and misinformation is exhausting. Okay, that's an interesting perspective. I don't want anybody controlling any information that I get. 11 Bravo said, great points, thank you. One Lucky Girl said, I say the same all the time, a lazy, uninformed society. Yes, we've always been lazy and uninformed. It's just that now we have more access to not be informed because we got a lot of other things we could do besides get information. Back in the days, you didn't have that many options. You had a few options on TV, a few networks, and they all showed the news at the same time. Then you had newspapers that had information. And if you were a kid, you were either playing outside or you could maybe play video games, or you could read books. You didn't have that many options. There wasn't that many things you could do. Nowadays, there's a million things you can do without ever getting up from your couch, all on a device. So that's what's changed. We've become more uninformed simply because we have more options to do things that allow us to turn our brain to the off switch. And we have contributed to this, by the way. All right, so all of these things I'm talking about, we're not talking about this like it's some random entity like the Wizard of Oz doing this to us. We've done it to ourselves. Because how did social media become popular? Why is TikTok popular? Why is Instagram popular? Why is YouTube popular? Because we're using it. We consume it and we publish on it. So even though it's them, the social media platforms, understand social media only exists because we get on it and we do things. If we all stop publishing on social media, there would be no social media. It wouldn't matter. So we are guilty and we're the victims at the same time. We're the culprits and the victims at the same time. Carla said, they call Trump a liar, but they can't show anything he's lied about. Well, Carla, I would say all politicians lie. What politicians do is they use hyperbole and they exaggerate. All politicians exaggerate. So they take a good thing that they're doing and they exaggerate it to make it seem bigger. And they take a bad thing and they minimize it to make it seem smaller. Trump does that. They all do it. Biden did it. Obama did it. Bush did it. Clinton did it. They all do it. It's just that Trump gets called out for it when they would do it, people just accepted it as normal politics. Carlos said, they said they were spying on his campaign, Crossfire Hurricane. Yeg said, well put, sir. How do you feeling about hearing both sides and making a decision? Well, I always want to hear both sides of a conversation. And often it's more than two sides. Often it's multiple sides of a conversation because people pick and choose what information they want to give you. So it's often like 1,000 sides to a conversation, but you just got to get enough of it that you can feel as if you can draw a conclusion. Ashton said, just be open to change views. That's true critical thinking. Yes, for 2% of the population, it's about 7 million people. So it's less than 7 million people listening to me right now. So all of you may be part of that group. Deb said, I fact check about everything. Everything, Deb? I don't know about everything. I don't know if you fact check everything. So, Deb, when you buy food from the grocery store and you read the label, do you fact check that everything that they say is in there is actually in there? I don't know if you fact check everything. I get what you're saying, though. Carla said where Trump said the virus came from was true. Yeah, we now accept that as true, but a lot of people were suppressing that back then. Mr. Ohio J said, my favorite part of the live is the reading and responding to the comments. All right, well, here we are. Your favorite part of the live, Mr. Ohio J. Liv Free said it's called the American education system. That's part of the cult. That's part of the problem. I agree with that. Big Sam said, I vet everything, which is why I clash with this live. Big Sam, I don't think you vet everything. So the same thing I just said to, who was that? Same thing I just said to, who was that? I can't remember who it was. I missed the comment. But the woman I was just, Deb. Same thing I said to Deb, I say to you, Big Sam. When you buy food from the grocery store, do you read the label and then fact check that everything that they say is in there is actually in there? And how would you do that? We can't fact check everything, folks. You can't vet everything. It's impossible to vet everything. You would go crazy if you had to vet every single thing you came across. Carl said, a few people know the government paid social media to, well, they definitely influenced. They had a whole lot of influence during 2020 and 2021. High Class said, I will not tell people what they want to hear simply to avoid differences. Sometimes it makes sense to do it. Sometimes it makes sense to tell people what they want to hear to avoid conflict and to just let things go. Sometimes it does make sense to do that. For example, High Class White Trash, I don't know if you're a male or a female, but if you're a man and you're in a long-term relationship with a woman or even a short-term relationship with a woman, there are times where it makes sense to just let the woman say what she says and not push back. Even if you have a pushback, I think it keeps things more calm in a relationship. Men, do you agree? Women, do you agree? So again, you can't push back on every single thing. There are times when it makes sense to just not even share your opinion because there's nothing to gain from it, even if you think your opinion is right. Big Sam said, that's facts. Tell them what they need to hear, not what they need to know, or not what they want to know. Carla said, facts and truth still matter. I don't care what people's feelings tell them. Yes, facts and truth do still matter. The problem is we do not agree on what are facts and what are the truth. What is the truth? That's the problem. So you can have your facts and truth and somebody else can have their facts and truth. And how does either of you get the other one to see things your way? The answer is you don't. High Class said 2 out of 100. Yes, 2 out of 100. 2%. Big Sam said, that's why I'm here. I want to be intellectually challenged, but you failed to do so. I believe you will. Okay, Big Sam. If you really believe that, you wouldn't be here. Carla said, MSM was lying. The only person willing to stand up and call them out was Trump. Well, on certain things, absolutely. But Trump also said, take the shot, you won't get the virus. Trump said that too. So we got to hold him accountable for that. They all said it. B5 said, why do you think Hillary Clinton didn't do that? Didn't do what? What are you referring to? Reciprocal Terror said, that's why the word silence Kamala Harris didn't work. Well, the word silence for Kamala Harris is just her normal way of speaking, which is why she should not have. Democrat Party messed up by having her as a nominee, but they kind of got checkmated into having her as a nominee because they waited too long to push Biden out. They had to let Biden expose himself during that debate to push him out. If they pushed him out when they wanted to, which was like a year before, they would have had a proper primary and they would have picked a proper candidate. Kamala would not have won a Democratic primary. So she shouldn't have not have been the nominee if the goal was to win, but they really kind of had their hands tied behind their backs because they waited too long to take action. And if she tries to run again in 2028, she's not going to win. My theory, she's not going to win, but she might. I don't think that would be good for the Democrat Party if she wins the nomination, but we'll see. High Class said, I know you're teaching me how to be more likable. I can't bring myself to be a used car salesman. What does that even mean? B5 said, you think Obama is a salesman? Anybody who makes it to the final two of an election, and they actually went through the primary, so I'm not talking about Kamala, but anyone who got to the final two of an election, even if they lost, hell yeah, they're a salesman. They got to the final two, basically the championship game of the biggest job in the country. How can you get there without being a salesperson? So look at all the people who lost. So again, Kamala, I'm excluding because she didn't go through the primary, but all the rest of them had to go through the primary. Joe Biden is a salesperson. You may not think he's that good, but he made it to the final two, and then he actually ended up winning. Hillary Clinton is a salesperson. Who was before that? Obama, salesperson. Second time was Romney. Before that was McCain. Before that was Al Gore and George W. Bush. Yes, they are all salesmen. They're all salesmen. They're all good salesmen. Now, what they're selling, you may disagree with, but you can't say they're not a good salesperson. They make it to the final two, the biggest job in the country. We can't do that. Reciprocal tariff said you always have to sell yourself. That's right. James said, I mean, Kamala was technically in sales on her knees, though. Well, she did sell something. As far as the biggest job in the country, again, I excluded her because she didn't go through the primary. All the rest of them went through the primary, and they beat everybody else to get to that spot. So we got to give them their credit. Carlos said they locked down the country, caused thousands to lose their jobs and their businesses based on, yeah, that happened. That happened. Reciprocal said force people to take a shot or they can't be free is tyrannical, and Biden admin did that. I agree. Dark and Artsy said, cause he lies. Who's he? You can swap in any president in the last 25 years and you'd be telling the truth. They all lie. Big Sam said, people are not that intelligent. He comes across as not that intelligent. Who are you talking about? You talking about Trump? How can you not be intelligent? You got the biggest job in the country. And also another thing I forgot to mention, that people who don't like Trump, they'll say something like, well, Trump only talks to people who are not that smart. My response to that is, if Trump is talking to people who are not that smart, and you're saying that as if you are smart, then how could you or the people you support not be smart enough to figure out how to talk to people who are less smart than you are? It should be easy for you because all you got to do is dumb yourself down. It'd be one thing if I was asking you to talk to people who are smarter than you, but you're talking to people who are dumber than you. That should be easy. So why did the Democrat side or Democrat voters or Harris supporters fail to speak to Trump supporters, being that you're talking to dumb people? It should be easy to talk to a dumb person if you're smart. Carlin said, top 3 books you recommend. Okay, without any context as a subject. Top 3, I would go 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene is my favorite book. The Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill, I'll put number 2. And number 3, there's a lot of books I could put number 3. I'll give you Thick Face Black Heart by Ching Nung Chu. And again, those are just 3 off the top of my head. But those 3 are my top 10. At least in my top 10. 48 Laws and Law of Success are both in my top 5. Ashton said he blamed other people for poor people problems, and Bernie said people like Trump is the problem. Who's he? I need y'all to easy on the pronouns, folks. I don't know who y'all talking about. Mind you, I'm reading your comments way after you posted them. Ashton said Trump blames Hispanics and Bernie blames oligarchs. I don't know if Trump blames Hispanics. So, again, this is all political theater. They're doing that just to get votes. I don't think he actually blames them. Reciprocal said Obama very good in front of a teleprompter, but not as good answering tough questions. Well, depending on what the tough question is, anybody cannot be so good answering tough questions compared to giving a prepared speech. Obama's an eloquent speaker. He's one of the best we've seen in the last 30 years. He's one of the best speakers we've seen publicly. That's one of the reasons why he won, whereas Kamala was one of the worst. It's one of the reasons why she lost. Carlos said, complaining about Elon while everyone forgets Falsey wasn't elected, but he canceled tea giving. All right, Carl, you're talking about something I don't even know about. AOC and Bernie, Reciprocal said AOC and Bernie are millionaires taking private jets and first class flights to fight the oligarchy. Yeah, we talked about that like last week, reciprocal tariff. I don't know if you were here when I talked about that. Big Sam said, that's a fact, you're on a roll today. All right, so I don't know what I said, but great. High class said the 2 out of 100 stats about critical thinking. Yes, most people are not critical thinkers and they don't want to be. Carlos said, mostly peaceful protests while the buildings are on fire. Yeah, see, that was bad optics. That was CNN, but that guy said mostly peaceful, but then the building was on fire behind him. They shouldn't have did that. He should have just turned the other way so the burning building wasn't behind him. That was a bad idea. Reciprocal said, you got fired because you wouldn't get the shot? What kind of job did you have? Where were you working at? Big Sam said, communication, making sure you connect with the person, not speak over their heads. That is true. And it's also listening. Listening and speaking are both part of communication. Lee and Lisa said, practice talking to 10-year-olds is a good strategy. Yes, it is. Or he's making sure a 10-year-old can understand you. You can even throw your stuff into, nowadays, you only have to talk to a 10-year-old. You can throw it into a chat GPT and ask it, what's the grade level of how I'm speaking right now? But real people is actually better. Sam said, that's a fact. They're far more uneducated than educated, as evident by Trump being in office. All right, Big Sam, we get it. You don't like Trump. Point recedes. Big Sam, you spitting facts today. Even a broken clock is correct twice a day. Well, you already said I was right like 5 times. So I got to be more than a broken clock. I was right like 5 times already, according to you. All right. Daniel said, no, that's not to me. Cass said, the so-called educated people don't even know what a woman is. Yeah, Ketanji Brown Jackson. She's on the Supreme Court. Hey, courtesy of Joe Biden. But we elected Joe Biden, so we can't be mad about it. I mean, you can be mad, but you can't. High class said, I call it word games. Yes, that's what it is. And understand that when people play word games, these are usually really smart people. They play word games. So you got to be careful. They're not dummies. These are very smart individuals. So I see a lot of you having a lot of healthy back and forth with each other. I'm just reading the ones that talk to me. Carla said, more language malarkey. Yeah, that was the Joe Biden word, malarkey. He used that word a lot. Carla said, here's how you can tell educated from the uneducated. Are they still wearing the mask, uneducated? Well, I would say in their defense, Carla, if you ever travel internationally, I often see Asians, when they're traveling, I will see them with the mask on. Sometimes just if they have a cold, they'll just wear the mask. I think it's a cultural thing. In other countries, not in America, it's not a cultural thing, but in Asian countries, especially when I'm traveling, I see Asians with the mask on all the time. And it's not because they are like with a bad virus. It's just if they have a cough or anything, they wear that as a common courtesy to everyone else that, hey, I don't want to get my germs on you, which is actually not necessarily a bad thing. But again, cultural. I'm not from Asia, but I've seen that many times. But Americans wearing it, well, once you indoctrinate people to think a certain way, I think they pretty much stand that way. Lee and Lisa, you put at Dre. I don't see those any different. I don't know, Lee and Lisa, if you're talking to me. You said, do you believe taxpayers should pay for junk food on food stamps? Well, we're already paying for it. Now, if RFKJ decides to take it away, I'm fine with that as well. But right now, we're already paying for it. It's me, Haram said, really? I don't know what your question really is too, but I'm answering your other question, which said, did I mess with cryptocurrency? I mess with cryptocurrency right now. I do presently mess with cryptocurrencies. I don't know what your really was too. I don't know what you were questioning. Bear said, chair, 4 legs. Oh, damn. All right, I missed it. So see, these captures are confusing me. I was thinking of an animal. They said, what has 4 legs? I was looking for an animal. I was looking for like a deer or a goat or something. It was the chair. All right, so that's why I didn't fail to capture. I just pushed the refresh button and give me a different one that I could get the answer right to. So I guess I'm not that smart either. High class said, people lie all the time, including institutions. As a nurse during the virus, I was labeled crazy. Yes, all human beings lie. It's just how much impact does your lie have and who you lying to? That's all that actually matters. High class, I had to threaten multiple lawsuits against big institutions. The level of illegal was mind blowing. I'm sure. Uncle Eaton says the media portrayed Biden as in cognitive decline and he was very sharp. And I don't know about that, Uncle. I think he was in cognitive decline. Actually, I think both are true, what you're saying. There was a period during his administration where Biden was sharp. And there was also a period when he was in cognitive decline. So actually what you said there, both points are true. So it's not one against the other. It just changed over time. He went from being sharp to being in cognitive decline. I think that both can be true. Kat says certain Democrat creators on TikTok are paid 20 grand last summer by the DNC to lie on their platforms. How you know that's true? What's your source, Kath? Irma, thank you for the rose. Good to see you here. Uncle Eaton said, I only trust MSNBC. All right, so you're trolling here. I think you're trolling me, Uncle. Carlin, thank you for the follow. Carlin said, I'm from Chambersburg, close to Altoona. Yeah, I know about Chambersburg. Shout out to Chambersburg. Carlin says, so many people made decisions based on fear and lies. Now they don't want to admit it duped. Well, I mean, once people make a decision that they can't undo, then of course they usually want to just come up with a justification for what they did, because otherwise they would feel stupid. All right, they fooled me and I can't undo what I did. See, if you fool me and I can undo it, it's like if I buy a product and it ends up being the wrong product, well, I can take it back and get a refund. So I can admit that was the wrong product. But if I do something and I'm stuck with it, now I can't just act like it didn't happen. So, Art, I appreciate you. King's Work said, how do you become more of a critical thinker? It's a good question. I actually have an answer for you. I did a series on my podcast, episode 1826, 1827, which is the traits of a critical thinker and how to become more of a critical thinker. Off the top of my head, number 1, don't accept anything at face value. Number 2, be willing to question everything. Number 3, don't trust anyone's information but your own. And just those top 3 off the top of my head, but you should listen to those 2 episodes, 1826 and 1827. Go to workonyourgamepodcast.com. You can see the whole list of all the past episodes. Workonyourgamepodcast.com. Carlos said, I'm driving, so I'll be quiet for now. All right, cool. Big Sam said, today you was on point, so I have nothing negative to say. Well, Big Sam, you already said a couple of negative things. They were passive aggressive, veiled negativity, but okay, fine. Uh, Big Sam said, I would agree with you. If you're not using ChatGPT, you're falling behind. Well, you should use some form of AI. ChatGPT is a good one to start with because everybody's heard of it. Most of you have heard of it. But everybody should be using some form of AI just for the chat. Just chat with it and just see what it does so you can get a feel for where things are going. There's a lot more you can do, but you can at least start there. April said, at this point, I think with all the avenues to be informed, being uninformed is a choice. Well, April, that's an interesting phrasing, but let's think about that. With so many different ways to be informed, quote unquote, informed, somebody can have information, but it's not the same information that you have. So each of you could think the other one is uninformed because y'all have completely different information because there's so much information. So the problem with being, quote unquote, informed these days is that it's like 1,000 different ways to be informed. And we don't have to agree on who has the right information. So I can have all this information over here and I think I'm informed. And then I come across you and you got all this information that you got from somewhere else and you think you're informed. And then when we start to engage, I'm like, your information is wrong. And you're like, my information is wrong. So I think you're uninformed and you think I'm uninformed. And both of us could be right and both of us could be wrong. So that's the challenge with the uninformed phrasing, is that who is the judge of what makes somebody informed? So these words are all they're highly subjective. These adjectives that we put on each other. So what I say, again, this is the reason why I like sports better than all this shit, because there's a scoreboard and the bottom line is a scoreboard. Everything else is all subjective and based on people's opinions. Daily MAK said, I agree, Trump does it a lot. He always says at a level nobody's ever seen. Hyperbole. Well, that's Trump's natural speaking. Yeah, that's his natural way of talking. And it works for him because he's always talked like that. So you knew he wasn't being fake. He was talking like that before he became a politician. Daily Max says, saying you vet everything is like saying you read the terms and conditions of everything. Pretty much, yes. And nobody does that. So it's impossible to vet everything. It's too much information to vet everything. Carlos says, true, there are only two sexes. I got to be careful. Carlos, TikTok might be listening. High Class said, Obama is the salesman. I don't know if he's the salesman. He's the public speaker. He's a great public speaker. He was able to sell his ideas and win the election twice. As far as selling outside of politics, I don't think Obama does too much of that. And after he was president, he doesn't have to. But outside of that, before he was president, he wasn't much of a salesperson. But he became a great one on the right stage. Big Sam said, Trump because he was selected, not elected. What does that even mean? User said, Trump has the most intelligent, educated people as his supporters. Okay, some people believe that. Some people believe the exact opposite. Lawrence McKinnis said, my first time on the live, I'm intrigued and followed. Well, I appreciate you, Lawrence. I'm glad you're intrigued. Carlos said, I learned more using my library card than I ever did in college. A whole lot cheaper, too. I didn't know people still had library cards. Shout out to those who have library cards. I had a library card back in the day. Actually, my mom had a library card. She used to take my sister and I to the library all the time. We would take out books and then bring them back. I remember one time we kept the books out for too long. And the way the library, I don't know how it works now. I haven't been in a library in a long time. But the way it worked back then is if you didn't bring the book back at the right time, you got a fine. Like you had to pay extra for keeping a book for too long. Same way they used to have with Blockbuster Video. And I remember one time we went to the library and we had a bunch of books we had taken out, but we took too long to bring them back. And a woman at the counter scanned all the little cards in the library books. And she said to my mom, hey, you owe, it was like $50 or something like that she had to pay because we kept the books out for too long. And my mom didn't have the money. So we turned around and went back home because my mom had the money to pay the fine for the library books. But shout out to the library. And libraries need to stay around. Even though not everybody uses them, they should stick around because people who want to actually open a book and read, it's a great resource. Big Sam said, that's facts. Obama, the orator, is very classy. Yes, Obama is one of the best orators I've ever seen. As far as speaking for politics, he's great at it. Dally MAK said, I saw them wearing masks when I was in London back in 2019. Yes, it's a big, when you travel, you'll see people who look like they're Asian wearing masks all the time. Again, I believe it's cultural. It's not, I don't think they're actually very sick, but it's just a cultural thing. Daniel said, they have bad pollution. The reason I've been told is why they wear masks more. Oh, that's actually a good point. So what Daniel Lee said is that Asian countries have pollution issues in their country. So that's another reason why people may walk around with the mask. That's a very good point. Angelica 2008 said, well, listening to you just smart and very wise at the same time. Well, thank you, Angelica. I appreciate it. Ronnie said, I wish your lives were longer. I'm doing 2 hours a day. How long do you want me to go? I might have to take 2 or 3 bathroom breaks. I go any longer than that. Frank said, which GPT do I use? I use the chatgpt.com. Isn't that what it's called? I use the app called ChatGPT. So I'm believing this is by OpenAI. Isn't it just chatgpt.com? That's the only one I know about. There are other chat bots. So if you're asking what chat bot I use, what I use is ChatGPT. I got the app. So here it is right here. ChatGPT. So I use the app, and in the app, I will talk to it. So sometimes you'll hear me, I can just talk into it, and it'll listen, and it'll take everything you said, and it'll make it into words, and then you can send it out. So if you have a long explanation, and by the way, when you're using ChatGPT, you got to give it detailed explanations of what you want. You don't have to, actually. The more detailed the explanation, the better it will give you what you asked for. That's the way I would say it. If your explanation is not detailed enough, it might give you something random you didn't really want. Carl said, my kids have library cards too. It's a good idea. Maybe I'll get my kids library cards when they're old enough to read books and go to libraries. I'll take my son to the bookstore. He likes the bookstore, but he's more interested in the toys right now than the books. Big Sam said, library has amnesty periods all the time. We'll waive the fees. Yeah, I think we went past the amnesty period. This is way back in the day, though. I'm talking like when this had to be this might have been the 80s when that happened. Rosa said, you can get digital books and audiobooks on a library card now. Yeah, I've heard about that. As a matter of fact, I've written a lot of books. So all of my books are available in libraries. And the way they do it is the library will just buy your book. So they buy like the redistribution rights to the book so that you don't get paid every time. They pay for it one time, and then they can just lend it out to people as much as they want. That's the way it works. Like with an actual book, the library will just buy the rights to distribute your book. Listen, I have a library card. My mom took us to the library every 2 weeks, never late to return them. It was something like that, James. I don't know what the exact number was. I just remember the scene of us going there, and because to get in, you had to go through this little turnstile. And if you had books, you had to give them the books. And the woman said, this is how much you owe for the books that you brought back too late. And I don't know what the dollar amount was, but it wasn't this huge dollar amount. But whatever it was, my mom did not have the money. So we turned around and we left. And we went back home because she didn't have the money. And user said, love your lives and your intelligence and non-biased opinions. Well, I'm glad you see it that way. I think some people see it differently. But I appreciate it. Handwriting Nancy said, I'm 81 and I use AI. Everybody will be using AI consciously very soon. All of us are using AI, even if you don't even know you're using AI right now. As a matter of fact, AI is controlling a lot of what we're doing right now. All right, AI is the reason why this might have came up on your feed today. All right, AI is controlling a lot of things. So what I keep telling my audiences is that you need to get familiar with artificial intelligence and familiar with what it can do and what it's learning to do, because it's going to begin to encroach on your life if it's not already in ways that you did not expect. So anything that is text-based, anything that's internet-based, AI is already involved. And if you don't know about it, that doesn't mean it's not happening. So you should learn. If you work a job that involves anything that involves words, talking, anything that can happen on the phone or anything that's done on a computer, AI is already getting involved, and it is coming for your spots, coming for your employment. What I would suggest is that you learn how to use it so you can leverage AI rather than having AI leverage you, because that's the next thing that's going to happen. So it started with the simple stuff, like instead of having a person sitting there responding to the chat comments on a website, now you got a chat bot. Everybody's website has a chat bot now, and it's some AI bot that'll just answer your questions. Hey, I got a customer service issue. I need to make a refund. Now you got a chat bot that answers all those questions. They all did that first. That replaced the person who would do the answering. Next thing is you take like a fast food restaurant, and instead of there being a bunch of people at the counter taking your order, now you just plug in your order on a little board. They did this at Burger King. They're doing it at McDonald's. They're going to do it everywhere. Pretty soon they're going to do it at Chipotle and Subway and Wendy's and everywhere else. And all those people you see working in those places will not be working there anymore. That's going to happen within the next 5 years. Nobody's going to be working at a Chipotle or a McDonald's or these other fast food places. There won't be anybody working. No humans. It'll be one human just making sure everything's cool and then all the other humans, they will be out of a job. That's happening very soon. The next thing, and I'm just giving you things I'm thinking of off the top. There's a million things that's going to happen. I'm just giving you a few. Right now, you have sometimes people will go work at a factory or a warehouse, excuse me. So like an Amazon warehouse, Amazon always makes a big deal when they open a warehouse in the town because all the jobs is going to bring. They ain't going to be saying that anymore. They're going to open warehouses and there ain't going to be no jobs because only jobs are going to be the couple of managers who make sure all the machines are working. The machines are going to go grab. So you order you order a remote control off Amazon. So now somebody got to walk through the aisles of the warehouse to go find that remote control, put it in their little yellow envelope, and then put it in the place where it goes on the truck, and then it gets to you within 2 days. Pretty soon, a computer is going to do that, or a robot's going to do it because the robot is much more efficient. Robots don't need health benefits. Robots don't complain about their wages. Robots don't need to go to the bathroom. Robots don't need a lunch break. Amazon is right now working on robots that will replace all the humans that work in those factories. So if you ever had a job like loading a UPS truck or loading a FedEx truck or packaging orders in an Amazon warehouse, you will not have a job anymore. You look at places like supermarkets. I had a job once I only worked there for like 2 weeks. I was working overnight at a supermarket. So any of you been to a supermarket, you know what happens. A bunch of people come in during the day and they buy stuff off the shelves. So at the end of the day, a lot of stuff needs to be replenished on the shelves. There's a whole staff of people who come in the supermarket overnight and they take all the boxes from the back of the stuff that came off the truck that needs to get put back on the shelf. And they spend the whole night, 8 hours, putting shit on the shelf. All right. Pretty soon, the next 5 years, that will not be a job because there'll be robots to do it a lot better and a lot faster than human beings. All this is coming. Actually, what they're going to do is they're going to retrofit it, all the supermarkets, so that as soon as you pull a box of Wheaties off the shelf, a machine in the back is going to notice that box got taken and it's going to put another box in the back of the aisle, the back of the group, and it's going to push all the other ones to the front, and it's going to happen automatically. And they won't even need a job because it's going to happen automatically throughout the day. You won't even have to do that. So all of this is coming. I'm just giving you a few examples, but these things are all coming. Any of you ever had a job as a virtual assistant? I would suggest you learn some skills that can allow you to leverage AI because there's not going to be any virtual assistants in 10 years. Any of you who's had a job as a virtual assistant, you must learn other and new skills because there will be no virtual assistants, not humans, because everybody's going to have an AI virtual assistant. Your virtual assistant is not going to be an actual human. It's going to be an AI virtual assistant. And as a matter of fact, a bunch of you, if you talk to like entrepreneurs, small business owners, or people who run medium-sized businesses, you have probably actively had a conversation with someone who you thought was a human, but is actually not a human already this year. You thought it was a person, but it wasn't. Oh, here's another thing, especially for you men out there. And this is a great business opportunity for all of you if you want to take advantage of it. That you know how there's like ass models on the internet, people who just show off their body parts and then they get you to come to their website, then they bring you to their OnlyFans and they get you to sign up. I would say within the next 10 years, 90% of the most popular women on those platforms will not be real people. Those are going to be fake AI people. That's already happening. It's already happening, but it hasn't gotten mainstream yet. It's going to be mainstream within the next 10 years. That most of your favorite girls that you see on these apps are the ones that were making the most money. Let me say, don't have to be your favorite. The ones making the most money will not be real people. It'll be AI girls that look real. Their pictures will look very real. Right now, I can tell when I'm looking at it. I can tell an AI girl right now. If you have discerning eyes, you can tell. But pretty soon you won't be able to tell. They're going to have photos, they're going to have videos, and they're going to be able to chat and do live stuff. So the thing is, what they do is I was watching this video about amateur porn the other day on YouTube. And the way it goes is the woman will get on her app that somebody may subscribe to get on for $8 a month. And then she'll say, if you want to go private with me, you pay more and you get the private room. And when you get in the private room, the person who paid, they say, I want you to do this, and then you do it. Or they say, hey, my name is Mike, and then you say, hi, Mike. Right now, a human has to do that. Within the next 10 years, computers will be able to do that. Where you'll be talking to an AI girl, and she'll be having a conversation with you as if she was a real person. So you say, hey, my name is Dre. And she says, hi, Dre. And I say, I'm in Miami. She says, oh, I like Miami. And it's a computer. It's not even a real person. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because any of you can build one of these AI girls. All right, so if you're a girl, you don't have to take your clothes off and put yourself on camera, but you can build an AI girl and you can run the AI girl from behind the scenes, and all the money that she makes is actually your money because AI girls don't need to get paid. So this is a business opportunity, folks. And that's just one of many. That's just one of many. Another thing you can do I just told you virtual assistants are going out of business. So if you are a virtual assistant right now, what you should learn how to do is program virtual assistants, and then you can sell virtual assistant bots to entrepreneurs who need virtual assistants. You just got to learn how to program them. So the opportunity in artificial intelligence, folks, is learning how to leverage it so you can get business opportunities from it rather than trying to compete against it. Because if you try to compete against it, you're going to lose. All right, so there's some business opportunities for all of you out there trying to figure out what to do next. Let's see. Dally MAK said Taco Bell has that near my apartment. Yeah, they're all going to do it. There will be no humans working in those places. There'll be one person maybe. And pretty soon next level, they're going to go to the people in the back, the cooks. Right now, they get going with the front line because they're the easiest to replace. The next line, they're going to go to the cooks. Then after that, they're going to get the maintenance people. There won't be a maintenance job anymore. So if there's a spill in aisle 3, there's going to be a robot that cleans up the spill. Not going to be a person. User said, do I think it will take over nursing? Not quite, because the human touch, as they say, the bedside manner, there is still that need in nursing. So anything that involves some type of human touch is not going to completely be wiped out by AI, but it will be affected, user. If you're a nurse or a doctor, it will be affected because some of the things that you used to have to go to humans for, let's say diagnosing, is going to become a lot more automated. But you will still need humans because people want to deal with people. That's still a thing, at least for now, our generation. But any of you who doesn't have kids yet, let's say you have a kid in 10 years, that kid may grow up in a world where they're okay talking to a robot and not talking to a person. All of us, we want to talk to a human. Generally, we want a human for certain things we want a human for. But that next wave of people that get born in 2035, they might not. So just think about the future. AI has been the VA hospital for years. AI takes medicine cart to the floors. Yeah, there you go. Parking garage attendants. Oh, yeah, that's over. Yeah, that'll be over. Or we know parking garage attendants. Humans, user said, what will humans do for work? Anything that involves a human touch. So something that involves some humanity, that's going to be the thing. And the other thing humans are going to do is so that it doesn't take you out of your spot. TD said, lazy people complaining and settling at home playing video games go to permanent retirement, pretty much. Art Decor said, are you AI? I'm not AI, I'm human. But in the future, there's going to be an AI Dre doing a live stream for 4 or 5 hours a day. And when you ask it the question, are you AI, it's going to say yeah. Or actually, it's going to say no. It's like, no, I'm not AI. This is actually Dre. And it's going to be lying to you because I'm going to program it to lie to you. All right, there's some misinformation for you right there. So that's the next thing that's coming. That's also coming as well. So in the future, there's going to be things like you get on a Zoom call with somebody or a FaceTime and you think you're talking to a person, but it's not a person. But the person, it looks like them, it sounds like them, it moves like them, it uses the same language patterns as them. There's going to be an AI Dre that will stop and drink water just like this. And they'll be scrolling through the screen like this and they'll be reading the comments and you're thinking it's me, but it's not me, it's a chat bot. It's an AI bot. Now that's a few years away to get like human-like that you can't tell the difference. That may be a while, but computing power is very powerful. Things happen faster than you think. TT said AI affect black more than any other race. Why is that, TT? High class said, what? How do I build an AI girl? I just told you. I just told you. But you got to use the tools. So they call it a tech stack. So you got to find a tech stack that'll let you do it. Carla said they already have robots to clean the floors in Walmart. No, I didn't even know that. Let's see. There you go. James says some operations can be performed robotically. Yeah, any operation that can be performed robotically will be, and there will be no human with that job. So any kind of job you could think of, front desk. You know, you go into an apartment building or a condo, or an office building, and there's a person at the front desk to say, hey, how you doing? Where you going? Give me your ID. And they paid you up to the whatever floor. That won't be a job anymore. All that stuff's going away. Anything that's like the same thing over and over and over again is going to be replaced by a computer. So any of you who does a job that you're just doing the same thing every single time over and over again, you will not have a job. Construction workers, that's going to go out. They're going to be robots building buildings. They're much more effective than people. No workers' compensation. Nobody gets injured. Nobody gets sick. You ain't got to deal with personality conflicts, and they'll build the building faster. So all of that's happening. John said a couple of grocery stores here in Reno. Yeah, all of that's happening. They have automated stalkers and sweepers. What's a stalker? What's an automated stalker, John? Carla said, "You don't shop at Walmart. Does that qualify for strawman trophy?" No, I do not shop at Walmart. I will go. I'll go to Walmart if I want something. No, when did I go to Walmart? I was in Georgia, the state, a few months ago. When was I last there? I was there doing some business with some people I work with, and one of my grandmothers lives there, and she lives in a smaller town, and the biggest grocery store they got is Walmart. So I went to Walmart then. So shout out to Walmart, but I don't generally shop at Walmart. No, I prefer Whole Foods when it comes to. Oh, John said to replenish things off the shelf. Oh, that's what it's called, a stalker. Okay, yes. Did we have any strong? No, we didn't really have a strong man today. I don't think we didn't get a strong man of the day comment today. So our sponsors will be disappointed. We didn't really have them. So all that said, everybody, we might talk about black on black crime tomorrow. Now, a bunch of people were giving me compliments today. Those same people will be mad at me tomorrow. So we might talk about black on black crime tomorrow. We might talk about something else. We'll see what happens in the news. If nothing bumps this off, then we'll probably talk about black on black crime tomorrow. And I got a lot of things to say about it because a lot of people on X specifically are trying to make some arguments about the concept of black on black crime that are incorrect as far as I'm concerned. And we may get to that tomorrow. We might not. It depends on what ends up happening. Oh, stalker. Okay. All right. So stalker, not stalker. I was about to say, I never heard of a stalker as a job. Now I know what a stalker is. I didn't know that was a career. Okay, stalker. I used to be a stalker. I didn't know. That's what I was saying, John. Like they're called stalkers. I was a stalker. Oh, okay, stalker. Yes, that I remember. Okay, so tomorrow we might do black on black crime. We might not. It depends on what happens between today and tomorrow. But either way, we will be here. John said, "I apologize. It's okay. It's okay, John. It's all right. I get what you meant. I knew what you were talking about." And I do these live streams 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. That's Eastern. 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. So I'll be back here tomorrow, which is Friday. I'm recording this on a Thursday. Speaking of recording, the replay of this live, if any of you want to see the replay, then you can watch it on my YouTube channel. The link to my YouTube is in my TikTok bio. Also, follow me on Instagram. The link to my Instagram is in my TikTok bio. Also, to work with me directly and get access to our programs, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is also in my TikTok bio. So there's only 3 links in there. I think only 3, maybe 4. So it's YouTube is in there, Instagram's in there, and workonyourgameuniversity.com is in there. And also on all the other apps, those same links are in my profile as well. So I'm just pointing out TikTok because TikTok has the most people right now. So someone said you'll have a full house with that top. Yeah, tomorrow we'll have 500 people in here. Today we had about 100. Tomorrow we'll have about 500 if I talk about that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe something else will happen. I'll talk about that tomorrow. And if all else fails, I'll just talk about Donald Trump. All right. Since people say I talk about Trump all the time, I guess I got to talk about Trump tomorrow. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. There was something that happened with Trump recently. What was the thing that happened with Trump recently? I was listening to Megyn Kelly. She was talking about it. What was it? I can't remember what it was. It was what was it? Yeah, I can't remember what it was. It was, so I might talk about Donald Trump because why not? Why not talk about Donald Trump? It was, no, not that. Not that. No, maybe not. I can't think of what it was. We'll see. I will see you all tomorrow, either way, 8 a.m. Eastern. Topic TBD. If you like my approach, don't worry about the topic. Just be here. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Everybody have a great Thursday. Thank you to my moderators. Thanks, Carla. I see you in here as usual. I saw Courtney in here earlier today as well. Marky Man, China. Appreciate all y'all being in here. I'll see y'all tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. We out.